more of these last 3 verses are more of a glorification and less of an instruction. Till now, it was all instructions, right? We started all the way from Shraddha, we all the way came up to, Asakti, and we came up to that level. But then now the 3 verses, they're going to talk about hierarchy of the people of the spiritual world. That's 9th verse, hierarchy of the people who are in this material world. How do people move forward? And then hierarchy of, and then in the last 11th verse, it's more of a combination, right? The combination, a combination of how do perfect devotees approach Radha Kund, kind of that is of the mood that we're to talk about. Yeah. So get your shoes on, ready to run. We'll try to finish the 3 verses. So now, as I said, having described the importance of sadhana bhakti, and having perfected the process under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, we are now allowed to enter further into the realm of Raganuga Bhakti. We read about Raganuga Bhakti in our last class. Anybody remembers what Raganuga Bhakti is? What are the different types of Raganuga Bhakti? No one remembers? No one remembers? Okay. So we talked about 3 different types of bhakti. Vidhi bhakti, or sometimes it's written as Vaidhi bhakti. That is the process with what we are doing. What process Prabhupada has given us for regulations, chanting, reading his books, the process that given us. So we are following it. So it's a vidhi, it's a process that we are following. Then after a long time of that process, Krishna gets merciful, and then he gives us a taste of this bhakti process. And then we automatically get attracted to the process. We don't have to force ourselves. Right now I have to force myself. Wake up, chant, read. It's all a forceful thing. But then it doesn't remain a force. Then it becomes Raganuga Bhakti. Right? And then Raganuga Bhakti, that's Raganuga Bhakti. And what do Raganuga Bhaktas do? They follow Ragatmika Bhaktas. Ragatmika Bhaktas they are eternally liberated. They never fall down. We're talking about Yashoda Maya. We're talking about, Prabhupada mentioned about the 3 friends of Krishna, Raktak, Chitrak, and one of them else. So he talked about that. So then Lord Balram, Nanda Maharaj, they never fall down. So they are Ragatmika Bhaktas. And we, as Raganuga Bhaktas, have to follow those Ragatmika Bhaktas. So that's what we came up to, right? So now we did all the processes. We came up to a point of Raganuga Bhakti, and then how do we further elevate ourselves to Bhava and Prema? So how do we come to that level of that purity, the true love? And this evolution is very natural. We cannot force ourselves into it. Bhakti is always a descending process. It comes from the top to us. We cannot ever, raise our hand and grab it. That's never the process of bhakti. Right? For instance, for a child, the ability to roll over comes first as a baby. Right? Then comes the ability to crawl. Then comes the ability to walk falteringly. He walks, she walks, and then falls down. It's unsteady. And then comes the ability to walk without difficulty. And then comes running. So similarly, if the child, he or she tries to imitate running, they'll surely fall down and hurt herself. But then that's why we are similarly in spiritual realm, we don't try to rush into anything, right? So we will hurt ourselves badly, and as we discussed the last time, we will be born in Vrindavan as a monkey if we try to overreach our adhikar. So it comes as an adhikar. So that's what is in this chapter. Sorry, in this verse. So let's just go to the verse. Can somebody please read the verse?
Yes, Prabhuji, I can read it.
Yes.
Vaikunta janita vara madhupuri tatrapi rasostavat वृन्दारण्यमुदारपाणिरमणा तत्रापि गोवर्धना राधाकुण्डमिहापि गोकुलपते प्रेमामृतप्लावना कुर्यादस्य विराजतो गिरितटे सेवा विवेकिनका.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Vaikuntaja janito vara madhupura tatrapi ratsotavad Vrindavana udara paniramat tatrapati govardhana Radhakunda mihapi gokulapate prema vritapalat Kuryadasya virajato giritate sevam vivekena kaha.
Thank you. Who else wants to read? Nobody? Okay. So, Vaikuntha Janito Vara Madhupuri Tatrapi Rasa Utsavad Vrindaranya Mudar Pani Ramana Tatrapi Govardhana Radha Kunda Mihapi Gokulpate Premamritapluvanat Kuryadasya Virajito Giritate Sevam Viveki Nakha. The holy place known as Mathura is spiritually superior to Vaikuntha, the transcendental world, because the Lord appeared there. Superior to Mathurapuri is the transcendental forest of Vrindavan because of Krishna's Ras Leela pastimes. And superior to the forest of Vrindavan is Govardhan Hill, for it was raised by the divine hand of Sri Krishna and was the site of his various loving pastimes. And above all, the super excellent Sri Radhakund stands supreme, for it is overflooded with the ambrosial nectarian prema of the Lord of Gokul, Sri Krishna. Where then is that intelligent person who is unwilling to serve this divine Radhakund, which is situated at the foot of Govardhan Hill? So it talks about the hierarchy of the spiritual world. So Prabhupada in the purport, he will talk about the hierarchy, and then he will tell us why is he explain the divine nature of Radhakund also. So Prabhupada gives the hierarchy there. So let's look at the hierarchy. How does it look like? Okay, so this is the hierarchy of the spiritual world. So the first thing that Prabhupada starts by telling in the purport that this world or this material world is just 1/4 of the entire creation. The spiritual world is 3/4. So just imagine that the spiritual world is much, much bigger than the material world, right? So beyond this material world is the spiritual world. Now this world is Dukhalyam Ashashvatam, always, right? Krishna says this in the 8th chapter. Mamupetya punarjanma Dukhalyam Ashashvatam. Naapnuvanti Mahatmana Samsiddhim Paramam Gatim. That person who leave this material world and go to my, they come to my planet, Mamupetya, who pray to me, then they never come to this material world, which is Dukhalyam Ashashvatam. So that's the nature of this material world. It's Dukhalyam Ashashvatam. Then we have the spiritual worlds. So now better than Vaikuntha is being Mathura, then Govardhan, then Radhakund, and that's the path that's been given. One thing that I wanted to highlight right in the beginning is that if we are saying that Vaikuntha or Mathura is better than Vaikuntha, that doesn't make Vaikuntha any lower. Okay, different spiritual planets are perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. That's the way to look at them. Krishna also in Bhagavad Gita, when he talks about, he'll talk about Guhyam, Guhyataram, and Guyyatamam. So that's confidential, more confidential, and most confidential. He never says, oh, this knowledge is commonplace. No, he doesn't say that. So similarly, the different spiritual planets are perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. Okay? Then, so that's the hierarchy to look at. That's the way we're supposed to look at this hierarchy. Everything has a reason. It's not as if. So I don't know if you read the Bhrat Bhagavatamrit. Bhrat Bhagavatamrit is written by Sanatana Goswami, and it talks about the journey of Gopal, who's a devotee of Krishna, and he's born in Vrindavan, and he's a cowherd boy, and he goes to many different planets. He goes to the spiritual world. He goes to Lord Ram's planet Ayodhya, and he goes to Dwarka, and he goes everywhere, but he's never happy. So, but that doesn't mean that place is nobody is staying there. There are people staying in Vaikuntha, there are people staying in Mathura, there are people staying in Vrindavan. So different people have different inclinations, how they want to approach God. So we don't look down upon others. It's just that they have their own mood. So the tattva is same. So tattva, when we say the word tattva, it means the truth. So that it's an absolute truth. Spiritual worlds are same. It's an absolute truth. But the rasa is different. So like, for example, you buy a house, right? The house is same, right? 4 walls, floor, air conditioner, heating, so on and so forth. But then how you decorate that house is very different. You might decorate it differently, I might differently. So similarly, the tattva is same, the absolute truth is same, but the rasa might be different. Many people, I like decorating a house in one way, you might like it another way. So, but that doesn't make one of us better than the other. So the rasas can be different, and accordingly, people have different inclinations. Some people prefer Vaikuntha. They like to approach God in a sense of awe and reverence. Right? So that's the way to look at it. I just wanted to give this overview beforehand before we go into all these different spiritual planets. Okay. So then Radhakund is the topmost. And now why is Radhakund? Radhakund, to give you a background, Mahaprabhu personally took the trouble to find it and excavate it. And this is elaborately described in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela. You can read it if you want to. I think it comes somewhere in the 18th or 19th chapter. So Mahaprabhu, he visited it, and then after many years, the Radhakund was excavated. He actually told Rupa and Raghunath Das Goswami and Rupa Goswami to actually excavate the Radhakund. Right? And Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about all these, which I have kind of highlighted in this diagram here, that the spiritual world is naturally superior to the material world. Now, why is Mathura important? Why is there less? Because Krishna was born there. But then he was born, but then he was immediately transferred to Vrindavan. Right? Then comes Vrindavan, because that's the place of all the pastimes of Krishna. So if you read, right, in the Bhagavatam, we read so many pastimes in Vrindavan. After that, there are very little pastimes. Not many pastimes. Once Krishna goes to Mathura or then to Dwarka, not many of the pastimes there. But then comes Govardhan. And the reason Govardhan is given as a higher than even than Vrindavan was because if you remember the episode where Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill, that particular episode was very apt. It brought all his devotees together. Right? All the devotees of Krishna were one, and he was having a loving relationship with all of them. Yashoda Maiya trying to feed him, his friends trying to joke around with him, his friends trying to help him, and even the seniors, they say, oh, let me put my stick and see if I can help Krishna lifting it. And then all the gopis were there. They got, earlier they had to be shy, and now they were there. Everybody was under that hill, and they could just look at him without any hesitation. So that's why Govardhan is supposedly the highest, is higher than even Vrindavan. But then even beyond Govardhan comes Radhakund. And now, even though I've never been personally to Radhakund, but then the story behind Radhakund is that when Krishna kills Abhīṣṭa-dohaṁ was a bull demon. So when Krishna kills Abhīṣṭa-dohaṁ, all the gopis, they say to Krishna, Krishna, you have killed a bull, which is a sin according to Shastras. Now you have to atone for it. And Krishna starts joking. He says, are you joking? He was a demon. But they said, no, you have to atone for it. So Krishna says, okay, now tell me how I'm supposed to atone for it. Okay? And then they say that you will have to go and bathe in every single this pond, which are those holy places. You have to go and bathe there in all the universe. And Krishna said, oh, that's it, I'll do it. And then what does Krishna do? Krishna immediately, so with his heel, he struck on the ground, and that formed a cavity. He found a hole there. And then he mentally, he called for all the holy places in the universe. Right? And they all appeared. They all appeared, they paid their obeisances. And then Krishna asked them that, manifest themselves in the Kund. So all the water from all the holy places came and filled up in the Kund. Now the Krishna took a bath there, and that's okay. Now Krishna was purified, has supposedly purified. But then Krishna, being the mischievous one, now he said, now how can he let the gopis flee now? So he said, because you were favoring Abhīṣṭa and you were against me, now you will also have to atone for that sin. And he said, okay, the gopi said, oh, okay. And then he said, what do we have to do? He said, no, you will also have to bathe in all the holy places in the universe. And then Krishna said, but don't worry, it's my kunda is ready, you can bath in there. And they were like, oh no, we'll never bath in your kund. It has your sins that you have washed out in that kund. And then they from their bangles, they broke their bangles and they started digging. And then Krishna is thinking, okay, how much time is that going to take? So then Krishna finally begs, and then I said, let me help you. And then he helps them, and then he asks the water of all the holy places which is accumulated in the kund, Sham kund, which is called, to kind of just flow over in the Radha kund. And then all the gopis, they took bath there. So in reality also, Sham kund and Radha kund, they both are connected. If you go to Vrindavan now, they both are connected. And so the affection that Radharani carries for Krishna is available in that kund, and it's available for us to contact and be purified. But then it became, disappeared from the eyes of common man for many years, and then Mahaprabhu, he found those places and he brought them back. Okay, so but then one thing that Prabhupada was very strict about, and I'll talk more about it in the 11th verse, is that he didn't. Prabhupada, so what happened? There was one instance where Prabhupada, many of his disciples, when they went to Vrindavan with him, they said, Prabhupada, can we bathe in the Radha Kund? And he said, yes. But he said, be reverential about it. Don't frolic there. But then some of his disciples, they were, young boys and girls, they just started, enjoying in that water, throwing water on each other. And Prabhupada got really angry. He said, I told you not to frolic. And then he banned all his disciples from ever going to take a bath in that Radha Kund. So he reprimanded his disciples for frolicking there. So it's a mood of reverence by which we approach Radha Kund. We don't just take it as any other pond to bathe in. For Gaudiya Vaishnavas, it's the most important place in the world, right? And then association with Radha Kund is really sought after by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So that's the hierarchy that is being explained. And then why is Radha Kund superior to all? And I briefly mentioned about it that Mahaprabhu was actually searching for the exact location of Radha Kund. That was one of his desires. Right? That's the reason Rupa Goswami is given so much stress on Radha Kund, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire to find it. And all this is coming from Prabhupada's purport. So there are just 2 paragraphs in that purport. So this is the second paragraph. The first one gives us the hierarchy. The second one gives us the supremacy of Radha Kund, the reasons behind it. But then Prabhupada also highlights that Gaudiya Vaishnavas, other than Gaudiya Vaishnavas, nobody can understand the importance of Radha Kund. Right? Because first of all, to understand Radha Kund, you have to understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then that itself is not understood by other Vaishnava Sampradayas, that how Mahaprabhu is Krishna and Radha coming into this world. So that's why Radha Kund is mainly worshipped by Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the followers of Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya. That's the essence of this particular verse. So, but then many a times we read and I just told you a story about how it came into being. But then all this might seem very fantastical. Oh, this sounds so fantastical. So how do I approach it? How do I understand it? So we have to understand that in bhakti, everything is perceived on the basis of our adhikar. How much am I entitled to know? And that is defined by my sincerity and by my austerities and by my purity. That's what defines my adhikar. Right? Like for example, you have a computer, right? So in a computer, even though there are many softwares, there are many things in there, but I don't have access to all of them. Many a times I have to go to my my IT guy to figure it out, because it requires administrator access for many things. Even I cannot download softwares on my computer, so I have to go to them. But they have access to everything, right? So when we are in a material consciousness, when we go to Dham, we see material things, but we don't see the spiritual reality, as we don't have the adhikar. And I don't have the adhikar. Advanced devotees have that adhikar. So but that doesn't mean that we are permanently disqualified. We have the capability to get access to those places, but we don't have it now. Just understand it that way. So the way to understand it, so we pray for our spiritual realization, and then we try to see the Dham through the eyes of the Shastra and the eyes of Guru, spiritual master. So we have to understand that part. So even sometimes, when they say, oh yeah, I went to Vrindavan, but did I really go to Vrindavan? Yeah, we reached Vrindavan physically, but then did I actually go to Vrindavan? No, that didn't happen there. Because in Vrindavan they say that Krishna is always doing his leelas. But then I don't see that. All I see is cows and dogs, monkeys all over, and there are shops, there are people selling all sorts of stuff. I see that. Why? Because I don't have the adhikar to see the Dham yet. So we always, the goal is through our scriptural understanding, through our spiritual master, through Prabhupada's mercy, we approach the Dham and we try to understand it according to our adhikar. Right? Whenever we go to a temple, we don't go to a temple to see the Lord. We go to the temple to be seen by the Lord. Right? Who am I to see Lord? I just see an idol standing up on the altar. That's my mentality. But I go there to show that I have a desire to please Krishna. Right? I understand that it's a two-way street. It's not just that Krishna has to prove himself to me. I also have to prove to Krishna. So we get purified by going to Dham, to the temples, even though we may not see it happening. But then the purification is happening, but that adhikar comes as in time comes. And there's a reason why Prabhupada struggled so much to make temples in Vrindavan and Mayapur. It was a nightmare for him. His own god brothers were against him. They didn't want him to get a land in Mayapur. Vrindavan was also a nightmare. There was a war or something going on, and there was a shortage of cement. So there was a reason why Prabhupada struggled to make temples there, because for our purification, so that we can get purified. Right? So we use all our senses to serve Krishna. As I said, austerity, sincerity brings purity. So we use all our senses to serve Krishna. We put austerities, we put our sincerity, sincere at heart, and that will provide us with the purity, and then eventually we will have that adhikar. Right? So as it said, Atha Shri Krishna Naam Adi na Bhavet Graham Indriya Sevan Mukhe Jivado Swayam Eva Spurutiyada. So that there is no way that I can approach Krishna. It's Atha Shri Krishna Naam Adi na Bhavet Graham Indriya. That by my material senses I cannot approach Krishna. I cannot approach the Naam of Krishna. It's only by the service, by the austerity. And how the easiest way to do austerity is by our Sevon Mukhe. It's Sevon Mukhe Jivado, by the tongue. It's eating prasadam and chanting. That's the way to get that mercy happening. Right now I am opposite. I am vimukha. I'm not looking at Krishna. But then that happens when we do it, when we serve Krishna. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. That's serving Krishna with our material senses, which we try our best there, and then Krishna does his magic. So that's the hierarchy, and that's the reason that's been given in the 9th verse. Right? So I'm just thinking, is there anything else I want to add? No. Okay. That's it. Any thoughts? Any questions before we move on to the 10th verse?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So the third bhakti you mentioned is the bhav bhakti, right? Third type of bhakti. One is the Vaidya bhakti, Raghav bhakti, and the third is bhav bhakti, right? Did I hear correctly?
One is Vidhi bhakti, Raganuga bhakti, Ragatmika bhakti.
Okay.
Those are the three bhakti.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Ragatmika bhakti is eternally liberated souls. Yashoda Maya, Krishna's friends, Lord Balram, Nanda Maharaj, Gopis. They never fall down. Raganuga bhakti are people who look up to these, who take inspiration from the Ragatmika bhaktas and try to follow their footsteps. Vidhi bhakti is what I am doing right now, following the 4 regulative principles, chanting, reading. I have to force myself. My mind is extremely distracted. So I have to force myself. So I am doing Vidhi Bhakti. That's the lowest rung of the ladder. I had it in my slides. I think I haven't put my slides in that Google Doc. I'll put that. You all can have a look at that slide also. It has the 3 forms. And then the Raganuga Bhakti is further, we can do it in 5 ways, right? There was Dasya, Shanta, Dasya, Vatsalya, Sakhya, and Madhurya. There are different ways. So that's the way we do it. Anything else on anyone's mind? Okay, so let me pull up the verse 10 then. Where's verse 10? Okay. So now we read about the hierarchy of the spiritual world. Now we'll talk about hierarchy of the people. How do people, how different people are in different levels. So somebody wants to read the verse? You wants to give this verse a try?
Yes, Prabhuji, I can do it.
Yes, please.
Karmebhyo parito hare priyataya vyakting yayurgyaninas tebhyo jnana vimukta bhakti parama prema kanishthastata tebhyasta pasupala pankaja dursastabhyo api saradhika prestato diya tadiya sarasi taunashriyakta krute.
Thank you. That was flawless reading, Madhi. Thank you very much. Good reading. No,
Thank you.
perfect reading. Anyone else wants to give it a try? Okay. Karmibhya parito hare priyataya vyaktim yayur jnaninas tebhyo jnana vimukta bhakti parama premaika nishthas tatha tebhyasta pashupal pankaja drishas tabhyo api saradhika Prestha tadvad iyam tadiya sarasi tam nashret kaha kriti. In the Shastra, it is said that all types of fruitive workers, he who is advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life, is favored by the Supreme Lord Hari. Out of many such people who are advanced in knowledge, that's Jnanis, one who is practically liberated by virtue of his knowledge may take to devotional service. He is superior to others. However, one who has actually attained prema, pure love of Krishna, is superior to him. The gopis are exalted above all the advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Sri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boy. Among the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the most dear to Krishna. Her Kunda, lake, is as profoundly dear to Lord Krishna as this most beloved of the gopis. Who then will not reside at Radhakund and in a spiritual body surcharged with ecstatic devotional feelings of Prakrita Bhav rendered loving service to the divine couple Sri Sri Radha Govind, who perform their Ashtakaliya Leela, their eternal eightfold daily pastimes. Indeed, those who execute devotional service on the banks of Radhakund are the most fortunate people in the universe. So, we'll talk about the hierarchy of the people. Prabhupada is given in the purport. So, the text all the text here is coming from Prabhupada's purport. So you can read it in the purport there. So the first step are the Vikarmis. So Karmis, let's just start from Karmis. So Karmis are the ones who follow the Vedas. Right? They follow the Vedas. So they have some sense of direction in life. But then Vikarmis are who don't want to follow the Vedas. They just want to eat, sleep, and die. That's the philosophy. Prabhupada jokes many times that how the modern world is following the philosophy of Charvaka Muni. So Charvaka Muni was a hardcore materialist, and Prabhupada would jokingly quote many times that how Charvaka Muni would say, "Rinam kritva gritam pivet, yavan jivet sukham jivet." He says, so Rinam kritva gritam pivet. It means that you take loan, you borrow money, but what do you do out of that? You drink ghee. So now he's saying that you enjoy your life to the best of your capacity, all the comforts and luxury. Even if you have to take loan, you have to beg, borrow, or steal. That was the philosophy of Charvaka Muni. Those are the people who are in the Vikarmi mode. They don't want to follow any rule regulation. They just want to enjoy, eat, sleep, and die. That's the philosophy of the people in the Vikarma mode. Right? So those are the lowest modes. And then comes the Karmis. So the Karmis are the ones who are they act on the basis of Vedic knowledge. Right? They perform sacrifices and they receive benediction. So the third chapter, when we come to third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we will read that how different there are different kinds of sacrifices that you can do, and then you can please, and then the demigods please you, and so it's a sign of a cycle of sacrifice. So we'll talk about that in the third chapter. So those are the Karmis. But then they also don't have a very clear understanding of who Krishna is and what is devotional service. So they're just enjoying life. But then they have some sense of regulation. Then above them come the Jnanis. So the Jnanis are the one who are eager to understand the science of soul, Atma Tattva. They refrain from the blind activities of sense enjoyment. So there is some sense that, there is more than what I'm seeing in this world, right? So, and in Jnanis, we see, there are different types of Jnanis also. There's many categories, but I won't go there. But then there are people who are Jnana Mukta. They are beyond Jnana, and they are called Bhakta. That's us, devotional service under the regulative principles. It's Vaidhi Bhaktas, right? So we are trying our best sincerely to get engaged in devotional service. So that's where we are standing at the Bhakta stage. But then beyond them comes people who are fully absorbed in loving Krishna with steadiness. Premaika Nishtastata. Those are the ones there. And but then better than them are Pashupal Pankaja Drishas, who are the gopis, right? And among the gopis is Radharani. And then the Prabhupada in the then it finally comes to Radhakund, that Preshtas Tadvadhiya Sarasi, Tamnashrit Kahakriti. That as good as Radharani is the place where Radharani and Krishna used to have their loving pastimes. And it's called Ashta Leela, so Ashtakalya Leela. So Ashta means 8. The day was divided into 8 parts, and Kalya, so Kalya Leela. So the pastimes of Radharani and Krishna at the Radhakund. So Prabhupada starts by talking about different material energies in the purport. When you go to the purport, so the people who are the Vikarmis, they're wanting to exploit this material energy. Prabhupada explains that. Right? So, and Prabhupada quotes a verse also there, Nunam Pramatta Kurute. So Pramatta means mad. So people are mad with enjoyment, with the sense, they want to enjoy their senses. Right? So Prabhupada is quoting that verse from the 5th canto of Bhagavatam. So that's that. So we should not be on those levels. So we're not on the Vikarma level, not on the Karmi level. We're trying our best to come to the level of a Bhakta. Right? We're trying to use the spiritual potency of Krishna and trying to connect to the spiritual potency of Krishna. Right? So, and then the Jnanis, they don't have any sense of devotional service. Right? And in the purport, Prabhupada gives the example of actually Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He talks about Sanaka Sanatan. He talks about Narad Muni also. So there are devotees who are in the mode of jnana, and they are not able to fully comprehend what devotional service is. So many people dropping out today and coming back in. So that's the hierarchy of the people there. So then gopis, why are gopis the topmost? And actually gopis, Radharani is also top. Gopis, they don't expect anything from Krishna. So that's the mood of gopis. They always thinking about how to please Krishna. They're never thinking about how to please themselves. That's the very distinct factor between people who are on a very Vidhi Bhakti. They are just trying to practice devotional service versus pure devotees who's gopis. That they are always in a mode to please Krishna. That's all their mind is set on, right? And Radharani is the topmost out of them. because she fully understands that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And even Krishna mentions that in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. That comes in the 5th chapter. However, in Vrindavan, what happens is, when the pure devotees, they actually enjoy more than Krishna, because they're enjoying Krishna's sweetness, and nobody can enjoy that. Krishna cannot enjoy that. Krishna doesn't know what, and that just really, Krishna is always anxious to understand what are they enjoying. What are they enjoying? And that's why Krishna comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's the reason for coming. But then that's the level of service attitude, and that's the level of pleasure that gopis and Radharani get out of serving Krishna. So that's the reason why gopis and Radharani stand on top of the hierarchy of people at different levels, because they don't know anything other than pleasing Krishna. And even in that case, they're to such an extent that there's this beautiful story that how once Narad Muni, he wanted to understand that who's your topmost devotee. So Krishna said, why don't you go and you tell my devotees that I'm having a headache, and the dust from their lotus feet is going to get rid of that headache of mine. So Narad Muni goes all over the universe, and he goes all over the universe, and then what he does is that he goes to all devotees, and he said, "Oh, no, Krishna is having a headache. Can you give me the dust of your feet?" Krishna said that will cure his headache. And everyone refuses. He said, "Are you crazy? If I give the dust from my lotus feet for Krishna, and I'm going to go to hell for eternity. How can I do that?" No. They said no. But then Narad Muni reaches to the gopis, and he says that Krishna is having a headache, and he's asked for the dust of your feet. And they said, "Oh, that's all. Here, you take it." And now Narad Muni was surprised. He said, "Aren't you afraid of going to hell?" And they said, "We're not at all afraid of going anywhere as long as it pleases Krishna." So that's the level of devotion that the gopis have. I would say it's beyond my adhikar to understand that. So I'm trying my best to explain it. But that's the level of bhakti that gopis and Radharani have. But now the most important part that Prabhupada brings out in the purport is he brings out a phrase called Vipralamba Seva. That's the most important part that I picked out from the purport, 11th one. So here we are talking about going to Vrindavan, right? So we're going from so I just talked about in the 9th verse that people are Vrindavan is topmost, and Govardhan and Radha Kund, and then Prabhupada is telling that, oh yeah, we go to Radha Kund, we take a bath and we purify and all that. But then what did Prabhupada do? That's the bigger question that we have to ask. We're talking about going to Vrindavan, going to Govardhan, Radha Kund. Prabhupada left Vrindavan and he came to preach to Krishna consciousness for unfortunate people like me. He came to the US. He left Vrindavan. That's Vipralamba Seva, which as Srila Prabhupada is referring to in the purport there, right? We talked about it in the 8th verse that how the dham is in your heart. Dham is supposedly in the heart. Being a spiritual resident, Vrindavan was always in Prabhupada's heart. He spent his time doing all preaching activities, and that should be our main mood in bhakti, right? So all our preaching attitude, it should be dealt with seriousness, sincerity. We've talked about these things quite often. So by cultivating with this sincerity and this seriousness, we can feel that separation. We can feel that Vipralamba. So Vipralamba means separation. That's the Sanskrit word, means separation. And that will lead to our purification. So serving in separation. That's what Prabhupada has exemplified for us. And that's what we want to all follow. And then we see how Radha Kund is connected to all this, right? So Prabhupada towards the end of the purport, he says that we should ultimately take shelter of Radha Kund. So what does that mean? So Prabhupada, one of his disciples asked Prabhupada, you always say that we should retire and then we go to Vrindavan and we stay there and do our bhajan. But when do we retire? How do we know that? What is the appropriate age to retire? And Prabhupada said, as far as I am concerned, you're talking about an 80-year-old person, neither do I feel old, nor do I am fit for retirement. I am relishing the activities more now and I am enjoying the bhajan that I'm doing. That's the answer Prabhupada gave. Right? So Prabhupada exemplified the mood, the Vipralamba Seva Bhav. There was this Mataji from Hawaii, and she wanted to invite Prabhupada to the Hawaii temple. And Prabhupada said, and she said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, in Hawaii we have these very beautiful, not beautiful, very tasty, sweet and juicy mangoes. And then there was another devotee who was canvassing for Prabhupada to come to London for preaching activities. So Prabhupada said, mangoes in Hawaii might be tasty, but London preaching is sweeter than any mango in Hawaii. So that was the mood of Prabhupada. And this is how we should see the preaching opportunities that come to us in the path of devotional service. Right? Discussion is about Radha Kund, but we must direct our attitude, especially towards that mood of separation, which Prabhupada has shown us. Right? And it doesn't mean that Dham is forbidden for us. At the right time, at the right point, we can take shelter of Dham. Right? We can always go. There are so many yatras that happen. I know so many Maharaj that take devotees to Vrindavan. So that's okay. We should go. As I mentioned earlier, we have scriptural understanding. We read scriptures. Then we follow the guidance of the spiritual master or the senior devotees, and then we are able to enter Dham, and we are able to understand it from the eyes of the Shastra and Guru. Right? So that's the way to approach these. But for Prabhupada's, what Prabhupada's mood was and what Prabhupada showed us was to travel or what to do it in Vipralamba Seva. Okay, this was the last. Okay, so this was the last part of this 11th one. So we saw the hierarchy of the people there in this world, and then all the way going up to the gopis, because gopis and Radharani, they don't know anything else other than for the pleasure of Krishna. If Radharani has to go and become a maid in somebody else's house just because Krishna wants to, have a relationship with that person, wants to enjoy with that person, Radharani is ready to do that also. So just because Krishna wants to have a relationship with this person, I'll go and serve this person and induce this person to go and engage with Krishna. That's the mood of Radharani, right? So Radharani is, and similarly Prabhupada's, Radharani's mood is always to see what intensifies Krishna's pleasure. And similarly, that was what Prabhupada was doing. What will intensify Krishna's pleasure the most is when he will reach out to those unfortunate people who don't know anything about Bhakti. That was Vipralamba Seva, which Prabhupada is referring to, for all of us to imbibe and for all of us to sincerely follow. That's the 11th verse. Okay. Any thoughts about the 11th verse? Anything you would like to add, comment, question? Nothing? Okay.
Prabhuji, you said that's 11, but did we do 10?
Yes, we did 10. Sorry, I might have accidentally said 11, but yes, we did just 10. I'll go to 11 now.
Okay. Thank you.
So let me open up the 11th. Where's the 11th? Okay. So 11th, the last verse of the book. So who would like to read the verse? I want to give it a try.
I can give it a try, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, please.
Krishnasyochaiha pranaya vasatiha preya sibhyo piradha kundam chasya munibhir abhitas tadrag eva vyadhayi yat preshther api alam apaya alam asulabham kim punar bhakti bhajam tat premedam sakrad api Sarah Snatur Avishkaroti.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to give a try?
Can I try, Prabhuji? Krishna.
Yes, please.
कृष्णस्य च प्रणाया वसिता प्रेयसीभ्यो अपि राधा कुन्दं च मुनिभिरभितः तद्रग एव व्याधयायि यत् प्रस्थैरपि आलम् असुलभं किं पुनर्भक्तिभजं तत्प्रेमादं सकृदपि सरसन्तुरविष्करोति.
Thank you. Who else? Anyone else? No? Okay. Krishna Uchay Pranayavasti Priyasibhyo Pi Radha Kundam Chasya Munibhiravitas Tadrigeva Vidhai Yat Preshterapyalam Asulabham Kim Punar Bhakti Bhajam Tat Premidam Sakridapi Sara Snatur Avishkaroti. Of the many objects of favor, delight, and of all the lovable damsels of Braj-bhumi, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most treasured object of Krishna's love. And in every respect, her divine kund is described by great sages as similarly dear to him. Undoubtedly, Radha Kund is very rarely attained, even by the great devotees. Therefore, it is even more difficult for ordinary devotees to attain. If one simply bathes once within those holy waters, one's pure love of Krishna is fully aroused. Okay, that's a perfect verse. If we want to have our love fully aroused for Krishna, we take a bath in Radha Kund. But then we understood that bathing in Radha Kund doesn't mean that we just go physically bathe in there. It's the consciousness that with which we go to Radha Kund. So finally, it comes the discussion that if you do this practice, you will go back to Godhead in this lifetime. So that's the final statement now that Rupa Goswami is bringing to us. He talked through the entire process. He started with Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jibha Vegam, Dharupastha Vegam. The first verse of this book. And he said, you follow these 6 practices, you control your senses, your belly, genitals, and all that. And then even have a good relationship with devotees, Adati Prati Granati, and don't discriminate between, don't judge devotees based on their external appearance and chanting and all that. He talked about everything. And then the final thing he goes that when you have practiced all that under the guidance of a spiritual master, and then you eventually have understood the glories of Krishna, Radharani, and Radhakund, then when you come to that place, then that's where you can understand it. So it's through service, scriptural description, understanding from using our material senses to serve Krishna, and that helps us get the realization and see Dham. It's a gradual process. It's an organic process. It doesn't, as I said earlier, I'm probably just repeating myself, that we cannot just get up and grab it. It doesn't happen that way. It's a descending process. So organic growth, sincerity, and then eventually Krishna gives us that mercy. So when he sees our sincerity, in one of the earlier verses we talked about the story of that bird whose eggs were taken away by the ocean. She said, I'm going to dry you up. That was sincerity right there. But then obviously, a small bird cannot dry up an ocean. This is ludicrous. But then what that did was attracted the mercy of Garud. Garud can surely, dry up the whole ocean. Similarly, when we do something sincerely, then Krishna's mercy descends. And then Krishna, Guru, they tell that, okay, Maya, now you cannot touch this devotee. He's mine now. He's surrendered to me. And then there's no problem. Then everything opens up. And then our realization happens. So that's so as I said, Krishna gives us when he sees our sincerity. And then there is and I think I have a couple of verses in this here. I have some instructions here from Prabhupada and from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has written quite often about Radha Kund. He's given a lot of classes at Radha Kund, and so there's a lot of material there for us to understand how we approach Radha Kund. So there was once what happened was when Prabhupada took his disciples to Vrindavan, many of his disciples saw that, in Vrindavan there are many such sects that they say that, we should not just contemplate the pastimes of Krishna, we should actually do them. So we should enact them. And so for Ras Leela pastime, so there is a person who will become Krishna, and there will be females who will be playing a role of gopis. And so Prabhupada's disciples, when they went to Vrindavan, they saw that. And so when they came back to US, and Prabhupada was in Los Angeles, they did a drama of the Ras Leela. And what happened that when they were doing the drama, all the devotees, they started playing obeisances. They started doing arti of the actors who were playing the roles of Krishna and Radha. Prabhupada didn't say anything in that program, but the next morning in the class he was giving, he strictly prohibited his disciples to do that. And he said that this could all lead to digression from the path that he's shown us. Those Sahajiyas who are in Vrindavan, those are called Sahajiyas, as we have talked about it earlier. So Sahajiya means they're just pretentious. They don't want to follow any rules, regulations. They just say, oh, we chant whole day, we're thinking about Krishna whole day, and they do all these pastimes. So that's not what we want to follow. That's not what Prabhupada has shown us. And he really prohibited us from doing that. So interestingly, in the purport we read, it says it is rarely attained. This is rarely attained. So all these places, these holy dhams, they are not under the jurisdiction of my will. That never happens. It's under the jurisdiction of the spiritual energy of Krishna. So many in ISKCON also have tried this. They have tried to jump up and grab up onto this higher level of bhakti. There was this devotee that he went on a yatra, and he was a brahmachari. He went on yatra, and then he just stayed back there. And he would sit at Radha Kund, chant, 128 rounds. He would take bath in Radha Kund. So then, and he didn't have a phone or anything, and nobody knew where he was. He went missing from the yatra. So somehow devotees found him. They put him in touch with his spiritual master, and he only honestly accepted that he always wanted to try this out. Prabhupada says that you should stay at Radha Kund, you should bathe in Radha Kund, and he said that. But then his spiritual master tried to explain to him, don't do this. It's beyond your adhikar at this moment. But then he didn't listen. And then after a couple of months, he developed psychological problems. And his parents actually refused to take him back. In ISKCON, parents are always so annoyed that their kids go and become brahmacharis in ISKCON. They're always wanting to pull them back. But then this devotee, their parents also didn't want to take him back. They said, no, now ISKCON has to take care of him. So then many devotees took care of him with medication and affection, and they brought him back to some normalcy. But then there have been many such cases. And we talked about another devotee, right? They went to Mayapur with Prabhupada, and he sat at the Jalangi river and he chanted, and he said he became so blasphemous that he went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, you have given us something very easy, just 16 rounds, we should do 64 rounds and all that. And Prabhupada told him that don't do this, just go as I have shown you the path. But he didn't listen. And then he just fell off the path, and then a couple of decades later, somebody saw him filling gas at a pump station. So that's what happened when we try to go beyond our adhikar. Right? So what does this rarely attained mean? Does it mean we can't go there? No, that's not what it means. It means we can't access it. Right? When we go to Vrindavan, we don't enter Vrindavan, we just go to Vrindavan. Right? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrta. Mudo yam na vijanati lokomamajabhyam. That comes towards the end of the 7th chapter. That Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrta. I'm not manifest to the foolish and unintelligent people. We saw that in Mahabharata. Krishna is standing right there in front of Duryodhan, and Duryodhan is calling him, oh, go capture this Gwala, go capture this cowherd boy. What does he think of himself? He doesn't have any varna, he doesn't have any gotra, and he's just a cowherd boy. What does he think of himself? He just knows some tricks here and there, and he thinks that he can fool me. So that's the foolishness of these people. So similarly, I am foolish that I feel that I can go to Vrindavan, I can enter Vrindavan. I cannot do that. That's my foolishness. It will never manifest to me. That's what Krishna is giving us in Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is packed. It gives us everything that we need. We just need to unpack it. But when we go there, we'll read more. But then, so Krishna was visible to everybody on this earth. But then Duryodhana couldn't see him. But then when he showed his universal form in that, so he shows his universal form, not the complete one, a partial universal form in that arena where he goes as a mediator. And then Bhishma, Vidura, they all stand up and they offer obeisances to him. But then Duryodhana still sees him as a mystic. That's what happens to us. That's what happens to me. That I go to Vrindavan, but I cannot enter Vrindavan. So only a few people could understand Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he was around. So unless we are qualified, I cannot enter. I cannot barge into Vrindavan. So scriptures give us the glory. So now the next question could come to our mind that, but the scriptures are glorifying so much about bhakti, about going to Radha Kund, taking a bath there, and here you are telling us that we shouldn't do that. So scriptures glorify, yes, that's right, but then there are other factors also involved. So Rupa Goswami has given us bathing in Radha Kund, but that has been given in the 11th verse, right? He gave us earlier verses for progression to become purified. But if I say, no, I don't need to get purified, I'll go bath in Radha Kund right away. So go bath in Radha Kund. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, this Radha Kund will become Narak Kund for you. So Narak means hell. So I will fall down significantly. Significantly or what? I'll completely fall down. So that's what. So Rupa Goswami also had to give us 10 verses before he could tell us to bathe in Radha Kund. Radha Kund has the potency, but my sincerity is also needed. It's a two-way street, as I told you, right? We have the episode of Damodar Leela, Yashoda Maiya trying to tie the rope around Krishna's waist, and every time it's 2 inches short, 2 inches short. And we are told by our acharyas that the 2 inches are, 1 inch is Krishna's mercy, the other inch is my sincere endeavor. So that's always there. So potency is always there for us to tap into, but I have to be that sincere for that. The purity has to be there. And also, we should never have a demanding attitude. Even if we have that level of purity, devotees never have that demanding attitude. Right? I have followed all the 10 verses, so I'm going to bathe in Radha Kund, and I should be purified now. I should be pure. We can never demand from Krishna. It's a causeless mercy. That's why Prabhupada uses the phrase causeless. Right? So that's the way we have to look at that's the way we approach Radha Kund. So all the pastimes that Krishna has done, Prabhupada has always told us we should always read those pastimes. What that pastimes do, they intensify, they purify us, right? So yes, we have to reach that higher level of love. Perfection of love has to happen, right? But then to reach that point, we have to look at all the leelas, all the pastimes. And God does leela for that purpose. He does it for that purpose to attract us. So that's the whole purpose of his leelas. So we don't just blindly, just imitate them. We follow the footsteps, as acharyas have shown us, as Rupa Goswami is showing us here. And most importantly, for anything, forget about all the acharyas. Just remember Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada followed the mood of Radharani. And what is the mood of Radharani? I briefly touched upon that. She goes and brings as many as gopis as possible and coordinates the efforts in a way for Krishna's pleasure. That, okay, this is please Krishna, let me do that. And she herself prefers to stay in the background. And that's what Srila Prabhupada's mood was. That's why he gave us the morning prayers we do, Sansar Davana. There's a verse there, Nikunja Rati Keli Siddhi. That's what the spiritual master is doing. He's serving the manjaris, the gopis there for Krishna's pleasure. We have to follow that spiritual master. Right? So Srila Prabhupada, he brought fools like me to come to participate in pastimes which I dare imagine. I cannot even dare to imagine them. Right? So Srila Prabhupada made the mood of Radharani more prominent than merely residing in Radha Kund. We have to pick up on that mood and mission. If we cultivate our lives in this way, where we follow Srila Prabhupada's mood of separation, Vipralamba Seva, and then we visit Dham, we will reap the fruits of our service. That's the whole essence of it. Right? Then everything will be revealed to us. Right? If you hear of Prabhupada's very early recordings, 1966, when he came to US, there was this reporter lady who was interviewing Prabhupada, and Prabhupada, that in that humility, he was answering all the questions that she was asking, and she was asking very detailed questions, even asking spellings. Right? Nobody had heard of Vrindavan Radha Kund here in US. So Prabhupada was giving very detailed answers to her, patiently listening to her. And then a point comes that, she asked something about, okay, where are you living, or something about his residence. And Prabhupada very humbly and, with this intense feeling of separation, he said, no. He says, no, my home is in Vrindavan. He says, my home is Vrindavan. I'm just here on the order of my master. And if you hear that, there was the separation of Vrindavan was evident in his voice. And that's what the feeling that I want to cultivate, we want to cultivate, the feeling of separation, Vipralamba Bhav, right? We all are Prabhupada-anugas. Yeah. I read that term in the Prabhupada Lilamrita, and it comes in the end when the book is ending. The writer, he says that we all are Prabhupada-anugas. So the word anuga means to follow, and Prabhupada, so we are the followers of Prabhupada. And there is no better fortune for anybody than being a Prabhupada-anuga. Okay. That's the essence of everything. We just follow sincerely what Prabhupada has shown us. You might hear hundreds of people, somebody will come and tell you, Prabhupada didn't give us everything, he just gave us the basics, ABC. And then somebody will come and tell you, oh, Prabhupada didn't tell you about this and that. And the world is full of fools to tell you that. But down deep, when we develop that faith on Prabhupada, when we read about Prabhupada, what he has had to do, what he had to sacrifice to give us this, then we realize that all this has so much value. For that also we need mercy, actually. It doesn't come by itself. That also comes from mercy. But then that's the mood we need to have. Right? In none of the scriptures is that, you just jump to the, right? Even Bhagavatam, you have to wait for 9 cantos before you could think about Krishna. You get to come to the Leelas of Krishna. So similarly, without practicing the first 8 verses, we try to jump into the 9, 10, 11 verses of this book. It will perfectly ruin my life. Right? So the thing is to cultivate a lifestyle that naturally reminds us of Krishna by being situated in whatever position we are. Sthane sthita shrutigatam tanuvan manobhir. Tan, man, manobhir. So by mind, body and intelligence, whichever position we are situated in, we try to serve Krishna. That's the whole purpose of, that's what Prabhupada is teaching us. That's what we have to imbibe. So let's quickly go through these instructions. Somebody like to read them? You can go through them.
I can read.
Go ahead.
Yes, please.
So we are printing all these books for understanding properly. Not that here is radical and let us go. Jump.
No, you can read the whole thing, Mataji, not just the highlighted section.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Yes, Vacho Vega, Manasakroda Vega, Pritrim Sasya, Itan Vega, and Yogashishta. You are manipulated by the Udara Vega, Upasta Vega. But first, there is a test. Itan Vegan, Yogashishta Dira. Nectar of Instruction, verse 1. Then for him, Radhakund. Dira Statra Namuyate, Bhagavad Gita 2.13. He has gotten 3 dozen Sevada and living in Radhakund. My Guru Maharaj wanted to publish Govinda Lilamrita. He asked permission of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So first of all, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I'll tell you someday. And when he reminded him, he said, yes, you can print 1 copy. If you are so much anxious to print it, print 1 copy. You read it and you'll see that you have printed it, not for distribution. So we're printing all these books for understanding properly. Not that here is Radhakund, let us go, jump over like monkey. Here is Rasa Leela, immediately.
Yeah. So Prabhupada is clearly telling us that, where is that? So he's giving example of his own Guru Maharaj, who wanted to read the Govinda Lilamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's book, about pastimes of Krishna and Radha, but he said you don't distribute it because people won't understand it. Right? They are not at that level of understanding. Right? So first we have to, and Prabhupada is clearly telling us, first there is a test. Etan vegan yo visaheta dhira. That a person who has controlled all these senses that have been told in verse 1, then for him Radha Kund. Right? Then dhiras tatrana muhyati. Then the dhira is never disturbed. So we don't jump over like a monkey, Prabhupada. That's why I highlighted this section that no, we don't do that. We first understand what Prabhupada has given us, what we assimilate that, get the realization, then we can go to the verses 9, 10, 11. Oh, sorry. Next, somebody wants to read the next one, please. So this one was from a room conversation in August 1976. Next one, somebody can read, please.
I can read it, Prabhuji.
Yes, please.
Reference room conversation, August 16, 1976, Bombay. An illustrative case in point, the Radha Kund controversy in 1976. Srila Prabhupada was questioned about bathing in Radha Kunda. Was it all right? He gave assent and guidelines how it must be done with utmost reverence and respect. Devotees went and a number of them began to splash and behave furiously. Srila Prabhupada found out, became furious and banned bathing in Radha Kunda. However, Srila Prabhupada's purport from Sri Upadesamrita and the Acharya commentary clearly enjoin us to take bath there. What is to be done? Srila Prabhupada gave permission according to time, place, and circumstances, and excuse me, and withdrew it likewise. The injunction, however, to bathe in Radha Kunda is set down in scripture in a permanent form, including Prabhupada's purport. We can understand Prabhupada's anger had to do with the neophyte attitude of enjoying spirit offensive to Srimati Radharani, and not to the spiritual principle of bathing in Radha Kunda. Oh my gosh. The conclusion is that we should adopt the serious, mature, reverential mood desired by the Acharya and take bath there for our eternal spiritual benefit.
Thank you. That's from a book that one of Prabhupada's disciples has written, Ray of Vishnu. So Prabhupada, so as we were saying, right, so it's given in scriptures. You can bathe in Radha Kund. But then Prabhupada is clearly saying we should adopt a serious, mature, reverential mood to take advantage of that path and actually not get hurt by it, spiritually hurt by it. So that's very important for us. So we have to always keep that in mind. Then let's read a bit from Srila Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Would somebody like to read this?
Sure, Roja, I can read it.
Yes, please.
Aparakrita Vasa Transcendental Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's instructions. Aparakrita Vasa, transcendental residence on the banks of prema-filled Radhakunda, and Aparakrita Snana, transcendental bath in her waters, saturated in the nectar of prema, means to become wholly aloof from all desires for material sense enjoyment, and up to the end of life, to constantly perform manasa bhajana, deep meditational worship, with one-pointed submission to Srimati Radhika. And after shedding the mortal body, to attain one's eternal spiritual form and intently perform direct eternal service to Srimati Radhika. One who actually, in this manner, bathes in Radha Kunda attains this topmost desirable boon. Shall I continue, Prabhuji?
Yes.
We should constantly pray to the holy name of His mercy. A person still filled with anarthas should not engage in smarana of Ashtakaliya Leela. When we learn to hear as we chant, the opportunity to remember will automatically arise. At that time, Ashtakaliya Leela Smarana will become possible. There is no need artificially to try for it. I have taken bath in Radha Kunda. I took a dip in Radha Kunda. I'm a lump of flesh and blood. I'm my wife's maintainer. I'm a sannyasi. I'm a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra. Thinking in any of these ways disqualifies one to bathe in Radhakunda. What to speak of such materialistic conceptions? If we are filled with the attitude of awe and reverence, we also cannot bathe in Radhakunda. Reference Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhav, the grandeur and glory of Sri La Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur by Bhakti Vikas Swami.
Yeah, this is the biography of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, written by Bhakti Vikas Swami, who's Prabhupada's disciple. And clearly, so Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is telling us we have to become fully aloof from all desires for material sense enjoyment. And up to the end of life, then we constantly perform Manasa Bhajan with one-pointed submission to Srimati Radharani. That's what he's saying. So fully aloof from desires. And then how do we do that? So he's also giving us the mantra for that. Constantly pray to the holy name for his mercy. And that's what chanting is all about. Hare Krishna chanting that we do every day is all about asking for mercy. That Krishna, please engage me in your service. There is no need artificially to try for it. We should not artificially try for it. We should not pretend that, okay, now I'm pure, I'll go and take bath in Radhakund. It will dawn to us, it will come to us automatically. And furthermore, he's saying that we have to get rid of all materialistic conceptions and even awe and reverence. That is why Mahaprabhu, when the five ways we do Raganuga Bhakti, right? Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu completely rejects Shanta even, because Shanta is in awe and reverence. That's also not there. When it comes to love, there is no awe and reverence in love. The highest form of love will have no awe and reverence, because you want to serve the other person completely, and then awe and reverence is more like creates a barrier between that love. So that's why he's saying that attitude of awe and reverence is also thrown out. We cannot bathe in Radhakund. And when he says cannot bathe, means you physically we can, but then benefit is not there at all. So that's the essence that's coming from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he's talked a lot about this. I just pulled out some of the sections from there. So that's our 11th verse. So that's the way to look at it. And we also read a bit about how devotees carry dham in their heart. We read about that in the last class. We read a verse also from the first canto, 13th chapter of Bhagavatam, that how devotees purify the dhams. So this is the purity of the devotee, who is accompanied by that potency, and by his dint of his advancement in devotional service, his or her, and that person goes to a dham, then the dham gets purified. And the place is never the same. That's what happens. And so somebody can ask us that, okay, Prabhupada is no more, so is this still a dham? You talk about the purity of a devotee, but then when a pure devotee has been to one place, that dham is manifested from his heart. So it's not that if the devotee disappears, the dham also disappears. Even if a temple building is not being used anymore, it still has the potency, but that is not manifest. That's the difference. Right? So similarly, Radhakund was always there. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just came, identified it, and he excavated it. So the effect of a pure devotee presence at any place is indelible. You can never remove that from that place. So that's why all these places where Prabhupada has been, and he did his pastimes, they all are very, very special. So, and we also talked about that we do not discriminate between the dhams. That's not supposed to be something we should do. Even though there's a list, there's been a hierarchy given, we don't do that. That's not supposed to be done. It's just that it's similar to going from one room of the house to another. When you go from one dham to another, you don't leave a dham when you go from one dham to another. And it's a very personal thing. Some people prefer Jagannath Puri, some people prefer Mayapur. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur preferred Govardhan. So it's a bhav, it's a taste, it's a rasa. So live in dham within your heart. That's the goal there. And just to end just there's this beautiful bhajan that Narottam Das Thakur sings in his book called Pratna, right? Bishaya Chhadiya Kabe Shuddha Hava Mana Kabe Hame Hiravo Shri Vrindavana. So what he says is that when my mind is completely purified, being freed from all material anxieties and desires, then I shall be able to understand Vrindavan. And then I'll be able to understand Krishna and Radharani's pastime. Then my life will be successful. So all the process we have read in this book culminates to this point where we are told that we can go and reside in Vrindavan, we can take the benefit of Dham, but before that, I have to purify my mind, I have to free myself from all material anxieties and desires, and then I'll be able to understand Vrindavan, I'll be able to understand Radhakund, I'll be able to understand pastimes. And we do that practically as Prabhupada has shown us by following him. That's what we do. So that's the whole essence of this book. Purify our mind by following the path shown by Prabhupada, and then eventually the mercy becomes manifest and we're able to go to Radhakund. So I rest my case here. I hope I was convincing enough for all of you. Any questions, any thoughts at this last minute for what we have read? We are at 8:20. We still have 10 minutes if we want to have anything else for discussion. Sometimes I feel really proud that I'm able to go through, you all are able to pick it up without any doubts. Or it could be the completely other way, that I don't make sense at all with no questions. Okay, so this was the last verse of our book. A couple of devotees were asking me, and I think I was talking to Himangini Mataji earlier, that I think one of the questions was around in the open book was about the 10 offenses, and I think I didn't talk about it in detail, so probably that question was not appropriately presented. So I was hoping that in the next class, we can spend around 10-15 minutes just going through those 10 offenses and understanding what they mean to us in real life. And the next thing I'll do is I'll send you a list of questions from all these verses, which will come in your, not all of them will come, but from that set of questions, you will have questions for your closed book exam. So I'll send that to you either later today or tomorrow morning. I'll send those to you. So you can go through those questions. And if you feel like, we can discuss those questions also before you go for the exam. I'm open to that also. And so we're done with Nectar of Instruction. Next book will be Bhagavad Gita. We can start the Bhagavad Gita if you feel that you need time to read and understand all the questions and probably go back and look at all the slides, etc. So I'm fine with that also. Well, I'll give it a thought. If you have any thoughts, let me know. But that's what I'm thinking, is that I'll send you the questions. Happy to discuss those questions with you. If you need more time, I'm fine with that also. We can, but then we can also start Bhagavad Gita.
Prabhuji, I have a question. Sorry.
Yes, please.
When will be the closed book exam?
I haven't set a date for it. I wanted to see the comfort level of all the devotees going to give the exam. If you are okay, then if you need a week to prepare for it, if you think that's good enough, I'm fine with that. If you need more than that, that's also fine.
No, I was just wondering, meaning like this month, next month.
Well, I wouldn't wait a month for it. We will forget everything that we have read, frankly. So I would prefer to get it done at the most in a couple of weeks. So you can take a couple of weeks and do those questions and then be ready. It's not going to be. It's very simple. The exam is not going to be tough or anything. Okay. It's just that it's a closed book exam, so you might have to just remember a few things from Prabhupada's purports. And that's the purpose, going deep into Prabhupada's purports, remembering his analogies, remembering any special points he brings out for us to imbibe and sincerely follow. So that's the purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Good class. Thank you, Haribol.
Thank you. So yeah, please let me know if anybody has any thoughts. My thought is 2 weeks from now, we can have that exam. Next week, we can go over the 10 offenses, go over the questions. I'll send those questions to you today or tomorrow at the least, and you can go look at them during the week, and then I can send you, we can discuss those next week also.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Okay.